All right, everyone. Today we're going to learn how to use would like, would love, and would prefer. These expressions are very useful in English because they help us speak in a polite and natural way, especially when we talk about what we want or what we like more. First, remember that would is a modal verb, so it does not change with the subject. We say I would, she would, they would, and so on. Let's start with would like. We use would like to say that we want something, but in a polite way. For example, instead of saying, I want a drink, which can sound a little direct, we say, I would like a drink. This is much more polite. We can also use it to offer something to another person. For example, would you like a cup of coffee? This is a very common question in everyday English. Now, let's look at would love. This is similar to would like, but it is stronger. It means you really want something or you are very interested in doing something. For example, I would love a holiday or she would love to travel. So when you feel more emotion or enthusiasm, you can use would love. Next, we have would prefer. We use would prefer when we want to choose between two or more options. It helps us say what we like more. For example, I would prefer tea to coffee. This means tea is your first choice and coffee is less preferred. Notice that we use the word to compare the two things. Now, let's look at the structure. We can use these expressions with a noun. For example, I would like a drink, we would love a car, or they would prefer this hotel room, but we can also use them with a verb. In this case, we use the infinitive form, which means to plus verb. For example, I would like to eat, you would love to watch a film, or they would prefer to stay at home. In spoken English, we usually use contractions. This means we shorten would to ought. So instead of saying I would like, we say I'd like. For example, I'd like to eat, she'd love to listen, or they'd prefer to go. This sounds more natural and is very common in conversation. Now let's talk about the negative form. With would like, we make the negative by adding not. For example, I would not like to eat, or in the short form, I wouldn't like to eat. This means you don't want something. With would prefer, the structure is a little different. We say, I would prefer not to eat. So here, not comes after prefer. In spoken English, we usually say, I'd prefer not to eat. This is a polite way to refuse something. Let's move on to questions. To make questions, we change the order and start with would. For example, would you like a drink or would they like to go? We can answer with short answers like, yes, I would, or no, I wouldn't. These are very useful in conversation. We can also ask with would prefer. For example, would you prefer tea or coffee? And we can answer, I'd prefer tea. Finally, let's connect this grammar with some useful expressions for starting conversations. For example, you can say, by the way, would you like a drink? Or do you mind repeating that, please? You can respond with expressions like, of course not, sounds good, or I'm afraid I can't. These phrases help you sound more natural and polite in English conversations. So remember, use would like for polite requests, would love for stronger feelings, and would prefer to compare choices. Practice these structures, and you will sound more confident and natural when you speak English.